Good morning to all of you. Let's do some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Om Bhur Bhavaswaha, Tat Savitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Sadgamya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्युर्मामृतं गम्य ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 Let's open our books. But before we start today, because we haven't had this class for a couple of weeks, so remember, we are on chapter 2, section 5. And in this section, we are learning that everything is dependent on everything else. There are infinite number of objects and concepts of this universe, but they're all connected with one another, just like a thread in a network. All this is nothing but the supreme reality, which we call Brahma. So the essence of the instructions in this section of the Upanishad, which is called Madhu Brahman. Madhu means honey, and honey is considered as the sweetest thing. So the sweetest and the dearest to oneself is one's own self, the Atma. Perhaps this may be one of the reasons to name this section as Madhu Brahman. The Atma, the honey of honey, being the subject matter directly dealt with in this section. And we have seen, and we will continue to see, because we are still in the beginning of this section, a sublime and magnificent description of the true nature of the universe and the reality. The essence. Everything from the creator, which we call Brahma, down to the so-called most insignificant beings. It could be a blade of grass, or the worms, or the ants, which out of our own ignorance, we just think that they are inferior. Or sometimes the rocks and the mountains also. They are all organically and vitally connected. This is what this Rishi is bringing to our attention. Because to consider them as separate or unconnected entities is the height of our folly. In fact, this Rishi is calling it a sin. And because of that sin, we suffer. So that's why these masters, these Rishis, they said, all this is Brahma. The so-called particular object, we just focus only on the object. When we touch an object, we are touching the whole cosmos, actually. And when a person sees something, it is not an isolated object. It is the whole universe which we are seeing through that object. So that's why he's saying everything here and everywhere is honey, the Atma, one's own self, that one loves most, the self of all. We talked about how he gave us the example of the earth. Earth element contains all other elements which go to make up this universe, and everything, including beings, contains earth. The conscious luminous principle in the earth is the same that is present in all. These four, the earth element, the beings including every object, the consciousness in the earth, and the consciousness in the beings and objects are nothing but the Atma. That's what we have learned so far. And he's telling us to meditate upon it. And from there, he told us that we can substitute in the place of earth any other element also, or even heavenly bodies as the sun and the moon, or the directions, lightning or sound, or any other abstract principle like law and truth, which we call dharma, or all the beings and the cosmos. So the realization of the eminence of the consciousness in this microcosm as well as the macrocosm, that's what we are supposed to meditate upon. Where subject and object, or even the pairs of the opposites disappear, and even the triads like seer, seen, and the sight, or the knower, the known, and the knowledge. This is called a tripudi. They merge into the non-dual experience. So oneness of all. All pain and sorrow is due to our forgetting the ultimate cause. When we separate ourselves from this oneness, the individual objects or even the incidents, we think they are outside of us. So this forgetfulness is the bondage. And because of that bondage, we suffer. So this great Rishi, he is trying to remember us, the cosmic entity, as the essence of anything and everything, and the connecting link between any two objects, thoughts, and ideas, which is called interconnectedness. So this interconnectedness and the interdependence in this universe, it's almost like, just like in the spokes of a wheel, it exists. It's like in the wheel, it's a valley and it's a hub. They are connected. We'll see in this section that the Supreme Being who appears through his power of Maya as the umpteen objects, because we cannot count the number of objects or even the concepts. This is the secret truth, that they are connected. To say that the world wails, that is ignorance. That means out of our own ignorance, we don't see this connection. And when we realize that the world reveals, it is through knowledge. So that is the difference between vidya and avidya, ignorance and knowledge. And how does the world reveal to us? How can this world, we can really see how it exists? For that, he says, meditate on this. Because creation is him. Destruction is also him. So the creator is he, and the created is he alone. So what we see, we call them objects. We think they are different than him, but they are only him. He does not change by his creation. He is non-different from his creation, which is not external to him. This is the great mystery of God and his creation. So that's why Rishi Yagyavalkya, he says, meditate on this. If you meditate this like a honey, this mystery will be revealed to us. That's how all the reconciliation will happen. All these contradictions, which we think they are contradictions, they will resolve. All the problems will resolve. And supreme peace and bliss will emerge from this. So this is the summary of this chapter. Since we have not gone through these verses, all the verses, so maybe some of it does not make sense, but let's start where we left off in our last class. And it's on the page number 161. The verse number 3 we talked about, where he gives the example of the Agni. He says this of fire is a honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to this fire. So with the bright immortal being who is in this fire, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the organ of speech, these four are only the self. This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. This substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge is Brahm, is the means of becoming all. So the fire element he's talking about over here, because fire exists in the organ of speech. Now let's look at number 4. Now he's talking about the Vayu, the air. Ayam Vayu Sarvesham Bhutanam Madhu. See, Madhu means honey. Asya Vayo Sarvani Bhutani Madhu. Ya cha ayam asmin vayoho tejo myo amrit mea purushaha. Ya cha ayam adhyatmam pranaha tejo ayo amrit mea purushaha. Ayam eva so yo ayam atmaha idam amritam idam brahma idam sarvam. See, last part of all these verses is the same. This air is honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to this air. So with the bright immortal being who is in this air, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the vital force, these four are only the self. This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. This substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge of Brahm is the means of becoming all. So in this verse number 4, he's trying to bring our attention towards that oneness with the example of air. Air resides in the body as prana, the vital force which enlivens it. See, air is the grosser and the pran is the subtler part. So air is the carrier of the pran. So long there is pran, the body lives and moves. In its absence, it falls dead and motionless. We are all familiar with that. The element air is called honey because it helps the body by furnishing it with the necessary materials. This is the grosser aspect of air. The subtle aspect is the consciousness in the air, which is called pran in the body. Wind becomes breath and enters the nostrils. We learned that in YSA Upanishad also. All these Upanishads with different terminology are taking our mind towards the same truth. The gross form of air, the beings, the consciousness in the air and the consciousness in the beings, especially manifest as pran, are identical with the Atma. This is what he's telling us. In our common terminology, when a person dies, what do we say? प्राण निकल गए और प्राण पखेरु हो गए. So prans, they have left the body. So he is telling us that bright being, try to visualize that bright being in your pran. Meditate on it. Because often we say we don't see God. But we are familiar with these elements. We are familiar with this earth element in our body. We are familiar with this Agni element in our body. We are familiar with this prana also in our body. Meditate on that. More we meditate, easier it becomes, and the pain and the suffering goes away. Let's look at the next one, verse number 5. Ayam adityaha sarvesham bhutanam madhu. Asye adityasye sarvani bhutani madhu. Yatha ayam asmin aditye tejo meo amritam aya purushaha. Ya cha ayam adhyatmam cha chakshu तेजोम्यो अमृतमया पुरुषः अयमेव स यो अयम आत्मा idam amritam idam brahma idam sarvam. This sun is honey. Aditya. Aditya means the sun. So S-U-N, sun. This sun is honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to this sun. So with the bright immortal being who is in this sun, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the eye, Chakshu, eyes. These four are only the self. And what are these four? This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. This substratum of the above four is Brahma. This knowledge of Brahma is the means of becoming all. So now another way we can meditate and take our mind towards this bright being. This visible and gross sun is meant here at the first instance. The subtle principle in the sun is the shining immortal person, God. Whether we want to call it a Surya Devta or whether we want to look at it as God himself. In the body, the principle in the sun is identified with the consciousness in the eyes. The sun became sight and entered the eyes. Again, if we go back to the Aitreya Upanishad, that's why this meditation is prescribed on the identity of the gross form of the sun, the beings, the conscious principle in the sun, and that in the beings which manifest especially in the eye. See, our attention is always in the objects. Whether it's a sunny day or a snowy day, these rishis, they are taking our attention towards the subtler aspects of that, godly aspect of that. At least meditate on it for a few minutes a day. That's where they are taking us. To bring more peace, more harmony, more interconnectedness. Not just between the human beings, but with everything in this universe. Interconnectedness. Now let's look at the next verse, because these are all like a similar verses with different examples. So verse number 6. And this is on page number 163. Ima dishaha sarvesham bhutanam madhu. Asam disham sarvani bhutani madhu. Yacha ayamasu discha tejomya amritmya purushaha. Yacha ayam adhyatmam shrotraha pratihi shrutak tejomya amritmya purushaha. Ayam eva so yo ayam atma idam amritam idam brahm idam sarvam. These directions are honey to all beings. Disha is the directions, the quarters. These directions are honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to these directions. So with the bright immortal being who is in these directions, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the ear, and each occasion of hearing. These four are only the self. This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. The substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge of Brahm is the means of becoming all. So it's a similar kind of a meditation in the quarters and the beings he's telling us to do. Both in their gross and subtle aspects, all of which are identical with the Atma. The quarters became the hearing and entered the ears. The presiding deities of the quarters are identified with the principle in the ears. Every act of hearing, since it is specially manifest in them. Hearing. So that is also a devata. There is a presiding deity not only behind the eyes, not only behind the mouth, but behind the hearing also. So he says, meditate on that. Now, next one, verse number 7. Ayam chandraha sarvesham bhutana madhu. Asye chandrasye sarvani bhutani madhu. Yacha ayam अस्मिन् चंद्रे तेजोम्यो अमृतमया पुरुषः य च अयम् अध्यात्मम् मानस्तेजोम्यो अमृतमया पुरुषः अयमेव सो स यो अयमात्मा इदम् अमृतम् इदम् ब्रह्म idam sarvam. This moon, Chandra means the moon, is honey to all beings. And all beings are honey to this moon. So, with the bright, immortal being who is in this moon, and with reference to the body, the bright, immortal being who is identified with the mind. See, the sun was identified with the eyes. Moon is the mind. These four are only the self. The self-knowledge is the means of immortality. The substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge of Brahm is the means of becoming all. So Chandra, the moon refers to the gross and the visible moon. A lot of poetry has been written on the beauty of the moon, the calmness of the moon. When we look at Lord Shiva's form, what do we see? A moon over there for the calmness. The shining immortal person refers to the subtle conscious principle in the moon. We are supposed to meditate upon that. Moon in its subtle conscious aspect is identified with the consciousness in the mind. Moon became mind and entered the heart. Again in the Aitreya Upanishad. So you can see that meditation upon all these even though those forms help us, but we are truly meditating on the subtlety behind the form. And subtlety is nothing but the Supreme. So it doesn't matter if a person is meditating on the sun or the moon or the stars or any other form. They are all meditating on the same thing. That's how we are interconnected. Out of our ignorance, we just think that no, this meditation is better than that. That meditation is better, where we can just connect our mind and dissolve this material mind into that divinity. So it's not the kind of a meditation, it's how easily we can dissolve ourselves, our lower self into the higher self. Now let's see which other example he's giving us. Vidyut. Vidyut is what? Lightning. इयं विद्युत सर्वेषां भूतानां मधु अस्ये विद्युता सर्वाणि भूतानि मधु य च अयम् अस्यां विद्युति तेजोमयो अमृतमया पुरुषः य च अयम् अध्यात्मम् तेजस्तेजोमयो अमृतमया पुरुषः अयमेव सो यो अयम् आत्मा इदम् अमृतम् इदम् ब्रह्म इदम् सर्वम्. This lightning is honey to all beings. And all beings are honey to this lightning. So, with the bright immortal being who is in this lightning, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the light manifest in the skin. These four are only the self. The self-knowledge is the means of immortality. The substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge of Brahm is the means of becoming all. So the lightning. Lightning refers to the gross and visible form, and the shining immortal person refers to the subtle conscious principle indwelling in the light or the lightning. Vidyut. Lightning in its subtle form is identical with the light and heat in the cosmic sphere and with the organ of touch in the being. An organ of touch is what? Tvacha, skin. So that's why, how do those saintly people, they bless us, they touch. Their touch itself makes us feel blessed. Touch. Vidyut. Another example, Ayam stan yirtanuh sarvesham bhutanam madhu. Asye stan yitnuh sarvani bhutani madhu. Yacha asmin stan तेजोम्यो अमृतमेहा पुरुषः य च अयम अध्यात्मम सर्वः सो व तेजोम्यो अमृतमेहा पुरुषः अयमेव सो यो अयम आत्मा इदम अमृतम इदम ब्रह्म idam sarvam. So this thunder cloud is honey to all beings. And all beings are honey to this thunder cloud. So with the bright immortal being who is in this thunder cloud, and with the reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the sound and the voice, these four are only the self. The self-knowledge is the means of immortality. Substratum of the above four is Brahm. The knowledge is Brahm, is the means of becoming all. So this is verse number 9. We are rather going quickly over these because the idea behind all these examples is the same. This cloud is only to all beings. All beings are honey to the cloud. So when we see the clouds up there, that's what he is telling us to do. You can meditate on the clouds. So also that which is the shining immortal person in this cloud. So looking at the God in the clouds. And this cloud refers to the gross and visible form of the cloud. And we are all very much familiar with the clouds. The shining immortal person refers to the subtle principle in the cloud again. Remember that. And the cloud in the subtle form is identified with the sound generated. And in our body, it's a voice which is produced particularly. And verse number 10, Ayam akashah sarvesham bhutanam madhu. Asye akashasya sarvani bhutani madhu. य च अयम अस्मिन् आकाशो तेजोमयो अमृतमयः पुरुषः य च अयम अध्यात्मम् हि ध्या तेजोम्यो अमृतमया पुरुषा अयमेव सो यो अयम आत्मा idam amritam idam brahma idam sarvam. Now he's talking about the ether. This Akash is the ether element. The ether is honey to all beings, and all beings are honey to this ether. So with the bright immortal being who is in this ether, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with the ether in the heart. These four are only the self. This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. The substratum of the above four is Brahm. This knowledge of Brahm is the means of becoming all. So the ether refers to the empty space which lies between the two objects. The space, which we, in a common language, we say atmospheric space. But it's not empty. There's a God in there too. Brahm there too. The shining immortal person refers to the subtle conscious principle in the ether also, in Akash also, in the space also. It is specially manifest in the space of the heart in beings. So in our own body, that space in our heart. Try to see God there too. So whether we can focus outside into these objects or focus inwardly in our microcosm, idea is to meditate. Try to visualize that divine being inside, outside, everywhere. Now he comes to a very important term which we are all familiar with, dharma. Ayam dharma sarvesham bhutanam madhu asye dharmasya sarvani bhutani madhu yacha ayam asmin dharme tejomyo amritmya purushah yacha ayam adhyatmam dharma tejomyo amritmya purushah ayamev so yo ayam atma idam amritam idam brahm idam sarvam. This righteousness is honey. So this dharma is also honey to all beings. And all beings are honey to this righteousness. So with the bright immortal being who is identified with this dharma, and with reference to the body, the bright immortal being who is identified with righteousness, these four are only the self. This self-knowledge is the means of immortality. Substratum of the above four is Brahm. The knowledge of Brahm is the means of knowing all. So now the topic in this one is dharma. And we can talk about dharma all day long. Small term, but a big implication. Because dharma is invisible. But nevertheless, it can be seen in its effects. Although moral order is not directly visible to the senses and the mind, its existence is felt through the visible effects, the elements, such as the earth and the rest of them too. And because of the essential non-difference between cause and effect, it is stated here as though it is directly perceived. So dharma, which controls the entire universe and which is in accordance with the universal law, causes different elements to move according to definite law. and presents different worlds, different beings, gods, that means the devtas, through their transformation and interaction. The moral order or dharam is the embodiment of the principle of universal law, an order which is called rit. We have learned this term before. That's why they say ritam cha satyam cha. Very popular saying among the Vedic scholars. The gross cosmic activities are carried on according to this principle of rit, which is conceived as immutable. So the regulated course of action of every atom of the universe is directed by this moral order. The moral order invests the universe with the sublimity. And the whole thing is working according to this supreme justice, which is called nyaya, supreme justice. So the course of universal activity is ordained with justice and supreme accuracy through the principle of dharma. That's how big this word is, the dharma. The regularity in the particular positions, movements, behavior of different phenomena. For example, for the earth, sky, fire, water, wind, sun, moon, lightning, everything is attributable in this moral order, dharma, which manifests itself in all these entities and nourishes life in the vast universe. Sometimes in our ordinary language, we mean when we say the vows or conduct, our general conduct. When we say we are refraining from the falsity, that we will tell the truth, satyam vad, dharmam char, we have heard that. So speaking the truth is following the dharma. That's how we are in agreement with the divine merits in moral contents. When we follow those, the 10 principles of dharma, some of the virtues which we are familiar with: honesty, fellow feeling, charity, non-violence, truthfulness, even the sweet and agreeable speech, controlling of our senses, reverence, faith, austerities. They are all connected with the dharma. So over here, in this context, this general sense of morality must mean to denote the cosmic order and following the divine ordinance. So when we are following a life of a dharma, we are connected with God. So all those elements of dharma, when we are not stealing, not cheating, not hurting, not telling a lie, we are on the side of the dharma. Moral order invisibly produces twofold effects, which may be termed as general and particular. In its general or a cosmic form, it causes action and movement in the elements and cosmic bodies such as sun, moon, and others. So this whole universe is following the dharma. And in its particular or a physical form, it is responsible for the existence of the individual body. Organs. Course of the movements and the behavior of our organs. Eyes are following its dharma. Ears are following their dharma. Mouth is following its dharma. It may be very well be said that this moral order in its cosmic realm directs the aggregate of all heavenly bodies. Because we normally look at only the earthly bodies. There are heavenly bodies up there too. Our earth is just a small speck when we look at the whole universe. There are bodies out there. And in our individual sphere, the aggregate of our gross body and organs, they function because of this dharma too. So the moral order and truth, though it looks like inseparable and identical, have different duties to perform. It is almost like a person could be a king, but also the father of his children. It's like a twofold different duties to discharge and twofold personalities in different realms of the activities. It is only one person. And we also do that same thing. We wear several hats. Sometimes we change the hat very quickly. So, general or cosmic form of moral order which directs the actions of element is described in this verse actually. So, this is not a very simple mantra. That's why I said this dharma term, it is almost like a whole book, dharma. So we are supposed to look at that shining divinity in the dharma. In our individual form also. And when we look at outside of us also, in the cosmic form. For our own sadhana, we need to meditate upon as interdependent, co-related, vitally connected with each other as the manifestation of the one non-dual Atma. This is what he's trying to tell us. Because we use this term dharma in our ordinary language also quite a bit. It is no different than the divinity itself. We'll start with verse number 12 next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much for joining.